Wake Up Radio Network.
A rational voice in a world of conspiracy. Jim Duke perspective.
All right. So, did you know that the wealthy are communists?
Oh, really? Who said?
Well, I talked to a friend. I talked to my friend Ralph. You ever hear of Ralph Epperson?
Yes. Yeah, I have.
Author of New World Order and The Unseen Hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, he called me this weekend. He had asked me something.
Oh,
and
nice.
While we were talking about some domestic issue, he was just getting some advice on, and then he said, "You realize the wealthy are communists, right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm sure." He goes, "No, I did a DVD about it." So he says, "I'll send you some information." So he sent me an information. So I want to kind of talk about the wealthy are communists and also about modern Nazism. See if we can tie them in.
Cool.
So before we get started, my website is jimdukeperspective.com, and you can listen to the show on any of your favorite apps. Subscribe to us. That way you don't miss an episode. And you can see the YouTube channel, Jim D Perspective, that I put some of this stuff on, but of course I can't put it all on because it gets flagged. So I have to use discretion when I talk about these things. So I don't know if I could talk about communism on the commie YouTube channel, but we'll see. So anyway, Ralph said, he was telling me how communism, the wealthy are just as part of communism. And he said, instead of me taking your time explaining, I got a DVD I'll send you. So he sent me a video. But the wealthy believe the communist system grants them the most power to become extreme. And in the video, Ralph quotes Lenin, who said, "As long as capitalism and socialism exists, one cannot exist in peace. In the end, a funeral dirge will be sung over either the Soviet communism or over world capitalism." And then Anthony Sutton, who wrote something, The Bolshevik Revolution, he wrote about that. He said, "One barrier to understanding of recent history is the notion that all capitalists are the bitter enemy of Marxist communities. However, this is an erroneous idea originated by Karl Marx and was useful for his purpose. In fact, the idea is nonsense. There has been a continuing concealed alliance between capitalists and communists to their mutual benefit. This alliance has gone unobserved largely because of historians, and there's a few notable exceptions, but they have an unconscious Marxian bias and are thus locked into the impossibility of any such alliance existing." And David Rockefeller admitted in his work Memoirs that capitalists and communists are allies. So Rockefeller admitted this.
Really? Capitalists and communists are
allies.
Allied. Capitalists. Wow. Well, I've heard of like free market capitalism, like laissez-faire mindset. Is that what he's referring to, or no, you think?
Well, I'll explain it as we go, but
All right.
Capitalists, and I said this before. I've said this probably here. Communism is sort of a mindset that they use to enslave the people. It's a loyalty and ally to the state. The state is the distribution, and we are all enslaved to that state. But it's run by corporations and the military complex and the wealthy capitalists. The capitalists, the wealthy, aren't necessarily communists, but they're communist in ideology because they want the world enslaved to communism, as the state is the object of dependency, and they control the state.
Wow.
'Cause
I've
the bank-
always envisioned capitalism as being something that's like a libertarian or something for
No,
freedom.
not
And
necessarily.
wow.
No, because you got to remember that all the bankers, who starts the globalism systems? Who
The
starts?
bankers.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
starts socialism?
Rockefellers,
Yeah,
essentially.
uh-huh,
Yeah. Yep.
uh-huh.
Wow.
And they're all bankers. They're all capitalists.
Phew.
Financiers are capitalists. So what do they have their hand in communism for? Because they thrive on communism.
Which gives them all the control and power and wealth and
Exactly. And
relegates us as peasants. Yeah.
exactly, but they need the globalist communist system because it controls us. Now, you got to think about it. Think it out. Okay, let's talk about the systems. Fascism is where individuals own capital goods, but the state controls it. It's kind of what we are, a fascist government.
Right.
Socialism is when the state owns the capital goods and controls it. That's actually full communism. But socialism is a little mild where the state has the distribution. They take the wealth of the citizens and they force tax and they use it to fund the government to redistribute it. And they control the systems, the regulations and stuff. But you got to remember, the government isn't anything. It's the government. A government is just basically the rule of the system. But who controls the government? It's not Biden, right?
No.
It's not the politicians in Congress, right? It seems to be. But as we go, I'll explain this to you. In Tragedy of and Hope by Carol Quigley. You ever hear of Tragedy and Hope? We've talked about it. I've read I've got the 900 or 1,000 pages. Let me just briefly describe. Carol Quigley was a professor at Georgetown University. He was a stark Marxist, socialist. He wrote Tragedy and Hope as a guideline to hope that the people he mentored would have a guideline to understand that if the government would just follow through on socialism, which is such a great plan, all our problems would be over. Just submit people to the state. Why are you beating around the bush? Why don't you just get in it and turn into socialism? His problem was that why are the elite hiding it if we know this is what we want? And he didn't understand that the elite were hiding because they knew there would be a revolution. They knew there would be resistance. But he said in his book, I've studied their papers for 20 years, the secret societies, the round table, the elite, the bankers. I've rubbed shoulders with these guys. I know their plan. The secret is that they control both parties. The oligarchy control both parties. If they want their way, they could just get their way. Why aren't they doing it? He sounds like a whistleblower, but he wasn't. He was a contribution of socialism, trying to get it in the universities and indoctrinate students with it because he thought it was a great plan. But he was upset that the elite didn't just follow through with it. They were holding back. And he's like, come on, let's get on with it. So he wrote the book revealing, I've seen the papers. I know their intent. Not as a whistleblower, but as a hopeful. So we get a lot of information by him. He says there has been an international Anglo or English network that has existed for a generation which operates in a way of cooperating with communists. Tragedy and Hope is a required reading for Georgetown University students. And we have the mentor. He's a mentor of Clinton, but he's also a mentor of Republicans. You got to remember, Trump went to Georgetown University. So do you think Georgetown University indoctrinated him with Tragedy and Hope? I'm sure. By the way, Georgetown University is a Jesuit college. One of the prestigious Jesuits. Jesuits are communist. So Another guy, Frederick Clemson Howe, said he's an economist, lawyer. He was an assistant to Vice President Henry Wallace. In Confessions of a Monopolist, he said, there are the rules of big business. Get a monopoly. Let security work for you, and remember that the best business is politics for a legislative grant, franchise, subsidy, or tax exemption. It is worth more than stocks or wealth because it does not require labor, either mental or physical, for its exploitations. Anthony Sutton also said the West provided skill and knowledge to get the industrialized civilization underway. In effect, the United States and NATO brought about and built the Soviet Union and its industrial and military capabilities. So communism was built as a facade from the wealthy. And somebody asked me recently, why, if the industrialized civilization was so great, why are we trying to dismantle it? Why are they trying to dismantle it? Because now you don't even need workers. You don't even need laborers. Now they got machines. They got AI. They're trying to automate everything because they don't need them. So this kind of tells you what the industrialized civilization, the West was a means to bring about the industrialized civilization. Why? Oh, so you can make slave laborers out of the people, get them occupied, get them building up the system, get them to build up the industrial. Then you got the wealthy can sell things and, contracts and government contracts and military industrial complex, all this stuff is industrialized, right? You build it up. They did it in the West, and then they spread it out to other nations. I mean, China and Japan never innovated anything. They took our innovations and just made them better. They just enhanced them. But the industrialized civilization was necessary to build it up, and they used the labor of the people. Now they don't need the people, so now they can crumble the economy and destroy the people, destroy our livelihood. It says it in Micah. The wealthy basically oppress the people and steal their heritage. And so this stuff is, it's hard to see, but it's easy to see if you don't look at it like wealthy is capitalist and communist is different. If you look at it that communism is a system and that the capitalists or the wealthy manipulate those systems, you can realize that they wanted communism. They want the government to control things because through their industry and their industrial military complex, their corporations control everything. And then they buy out the politicians. Remember what it says? It's better to invest in politics than it is in stocks. They bought the politicians. Remember what Rothschild said? Yeah, Rothschild says, I don't care about the laws of a nation. I'll control the wealth of a nation and I'll make the laws. That's exactly what they do. They make it communist. They don't care. But communist controls us. Communism.
Been for quite a while, too.
Yeah. There was a story out of, what's this article called? This is out of the Irish Star. Joe Biden's chief economist is baffled, struggling how money works. This is the chief economist of the White House, Jared Bernstein, economic policy advisor to President Biden, got himself in hot water when they asked him to explain the economy. And he goes, well, economy can't be damaged. All we have to do is print more money. We all use money, right? We'll just print more. Mm-hmm. And they said, wait a minute. Do you know what happens when we print money? And he was like, I don't know, not really. Wow. He thinks we just print money. He doesn't realize there's fiat behind it. And it devalues the note. It values the currency when you print more money. I don't even know if he knows how to print money. The government prints the money and lends the money. No, it doesn't. The government doesn't print money. The Federal Reserve prints money. They're an oligarchy member of banks. They print the money. And he's like, oh, they back it with bonds, and they back it. He doesn't even know how how it operates. And then he says, I don't really know what they're talking about when they talk about. Oh my God, these are the advisors to the president, to the White House. They don't even just print more money. I guess we'll never run out of money. We just print more.
Wow.
Geez, imagine if these guys were like running. Well, they are. They're running.
Yeah, they are running. Obviously, look at our debt. It's what, 34 trillion?
Look at it.
Yep. You ever watch the numbers tick, what we're getting in debt at each second? It's astronomical. It's scary.
It could be
100,000 a second.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's 200,000 a second. Something like
yeah.
It's something ridiculous.
Yeah, it's scary.
So it's like, these guys know what they're talking about?
No.
Obviously, they don't.
Unless they do, and they're just deliberately trying to destroy the economy, acting like they're dumb. You know? So
again, how the currency works is the Federal Reserve. We elected them in the 1913s for the Federal Reserve Act because it sounded like it was federal, but it wasn't. Nothing's federal about it. And it was the bankers that we agreed that they would control our currency. And then they print the money from the mint, and we owe them the debt. So the debt's owed to the World Bank through the Federal Reserve, and they collect it through collateral, which is us, through the IRS. We owe back the debt. And they just spent, what is it, $6.2 trillion for this new deficit that they have, this new debt, and it only runs us for 12 months. Holy crap, you can't ever pay that back.
Of course not. The interest alone will be impossible to pay, let alone the debt itself.
Right. So what they say is we'll just print more money? No, if you print more money, that dollar that goes against this is now worth half that. Mm-hmm. So now you need $2 to make up for the same dollar. That's why prices go up. It's not the prices going up. It's not the value of the thing going up. It's the devaluation of the currency against it. And that causes inflation. However, there is also the wealthy who, are raking in billions and billions of dollars of profit, more so than they need, that's their thing. If we want our products, we have to buy it from them. But they're also jacking up prices to scalp us. So you have that too. Now, typically in an economy, as the inflation raises and lowers the value, your labor is worth more. So as the dollar, like if you got paid $100,000 a year, and they print more money, and you're now $100,000 a year. What you make is not really $100,000 a year. Now it's only worth $50,000 a year. They have to give you twice as much to make up for it. Now it's not that exactly that relative, but as an example. So basically, they would give you a raise in wages to keep up with you hear about the cost of living. The cost of living doesn't go up. The dollar value goes down. So inflation is the raise of prices because of the devaluation of the dollar, and your raise and increase, the raise into the cost of living goes up to balance out that raise of the products because of the devaluation of currency. But what happens in an economy like now, what's happening is prices are going up and wages aren't. That's what creates the bubble. Mm-hmm. That's what creates the recession.
Mm-hmm. Well, that actually lowers inflation, though, wouldn't it? Sure.
No, because inflation is still the value of the dollar has plummeted. And then their answer is to print more money. And you print more money, it's going to go down another percentage.
Right.
Every dollar you print, more in circulation, devalues what you already have.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, yeah.
So,
obviously.
if you have $100 bills to make up for, say, the value of that, whether it's backed by oil or gold, whatever it is, say oil. Now it's debt. We're backed by debt. Our debt is bought out by China. But say let's do something concrete. Say you have $100 that are worth so much of oil, all right, in exchange, and then you print $100 more. You just basically made that $100 worth $50 because now you put two of those in place to back the same amount of oil. The oil doesn't increase in value. It's just the dollar against it. The currency has devalued, so you need more to make up for it. That's the inflation.
Exactly.
It doesn't. The value of the thing doesn't change. It's the currency that's used to represent the note against that thing. So that devalues. The note's devalued. It's half worth, or it's a quarter worth, or whatever, percentage is put into the economy. But we think that this is being destroyed on purpose. The economy, see, they use pawns. They use communist Marxists in politics to leverage out the capitalist people. Now, I didn't say that the capitalists, you and I, who might be capitalists, are communists. We believe in the even flow of money. We believe in getting value. A worker is worthy of his wage. We believe that there's value and you should get a profit. That's how you make money off of anything you produce. Why should you work for free? Give somebody the same value of something that it costs you to do. No, you raise it in price when you give the person that thing, your service or your product is raised. We are capitalists in that aspect. But what I'm talking about is the wealthy capitalists, those that run the banks, the corporations, that actually basically run a socialist system. Think about it. The people on the board of Home Depot are the same people that are on board of Lowe's. They own their own competition across the board. It's like a socialist facade. They don't care which one wins. They gain a monopoly by being on the boards of both. They have Vanguard and BlackRock on the tops of all these things. Their financial investment is in everything. So they don't care which one flops or which one gains. But they use it, they control us because we have to buy their goods and services. So the capital goods are owned by the corporations, but the corporations are owned by the wealthy, and they use the governments to control the regulation of it and to control the redistribution of things so that you could keep people impoverished and enslaved to the government. The whole thing about communism, of Marxism, was to the people be slave to the state. And if you think about it, the Great Reset of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, follows that same model. You'll own nothing, you won't have any privacy, but you'll be happy. That's what the Communist Manifesto says. You won't own anything, you won't have privacy, your kids will be controlled in school, and basically, there's no God. It's slave to the state. So, you saying something? You're muted.
It's actually funny when you think about it,
Yeah, well, how so?
Well, just because it's so pathetic.
Yes.
Like living in a little, I don't know, like a little cave or something.
It's like living in 1984 book.
Right. Yeah.
Or Orwell.
Yep, even worse,
Yeah.
Well, as bad at least, Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's obvious to us because we see it. We see right through it. But there's a suspicion that they're destroying the economy on purpose. They're letting things fall. They don't have any use for us anymore. And you could see this. I mean, immigration, allowing people to flood the nation and then giving them out benefits.
Mm-hmm.
That's obvious stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now you're against people being free and wanting to come to this country. No, I'm against people getting handouts, coming into this country and not having to do anything for it, and us flooding the system with benefits to them while we're working for it and we have to pay for it all. Where are we?
Well, we're doing our 9-to-5 labor, paying for it.
They will take your house, Darren, to displace you so they could put immigrants in it. What? So they're displacing somebody for them. What is that saying? They're not equal. They're looking to destroy the economy. Now, I mentioned the Cloward-Piven theory. This article here mentions the Cloward-Piven strategy. I don't hear many people talking about it. The Cloward-Piven strategy is a strategy to overwhelm the system in benefits and then cause the government to have to redistribute income. It's very simple. It's stated like this: the Cloward-Piven strategy is a political strategy outlined in 1966 by American socialists and political activists Richard Cloward and Francis Fox Piven The strategy aims to utilize militant anti-poverty groups to facilitate a political crisis by overloading a welfare system to increase in welfare claims, forcing the creation of a system of guaranteed minimum income and redistribution income through the federal government.
Wow.
It's easy to see.
Mm-hmm.
An author pinned the hopes of creating disruption within the Democratic Party. It says, conservative Republicans are always ready to declaim the evils of public welfare, and they would probably be the first to raise a hue and cry. But deeper and politically more telling conflicts would take place within the Democratic coalition. Whites, both working class ethnic groups, and many of the middle class would be aroused against the ghetto poor, while liberal groups, which until recently have been comforted by the notion that the poor are few, would probably support the movement. Group conflict, spelling political crisis for the local party apparatus, would thus become acute as welfare rolls mounted and the stains on local budgets become more severe. So the federal, what does the federal do? Well, they just reset things. But it's not reset through it's not reset through our government. It's reset by, the elite capitalists who control the politicians. But they do it through the Treasury, through the Federal Reserve. But there's no common sense. There's no common sense in that. They're over flooding it with debt, spending, and they have to do it to spend on the welfare, and then they're dishing out benefits while they're over flooding it with citizens, and they're saying we're overpopulated here. Well, you're letting more people in, and you're advertising, come on in. You want free life? Come on into America.
Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's all open borders and communism, and
I could get into more about what China's doing. The facade of China. China's actually kind of gaining leverage over our economy.
Oh yeah, they own like 50% of the U.S. actually.
Yeah,
real estate and buildings.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, but the wealthy don't care whether they're running through China, America, or England. They just basically, they use the governments of these things, but they don't, they don't care. Now, let me just talk about a Nazi regime real quick. So there's an article that says, when America becomes the new Nazi Germany, they brought in tyranny of fascist ideology. Now that I read that, you know what it means. War crimes and human experimentation. The real Nazis became the U.S. deep state. And it talks about in this article, I don't agree with everything it says, but it talks about Operation Paperclip, which we know. After World War II, we brought in 1,600 Nazi German scientists, engineers, and technicians who basically we took on for employment. We gave them new identities, and we learned the strategies of Nazism. And then we used it for our brainwashing, MK Ultra, and propaganda techniques, technological advances. And look what we're doing. We're even now following the Nazi idea of streaming information, burning down the libraries. We're basically not burning down the libraries. What we're doing is censoring from the internet. We're burning down internet YouTube channels like mine. That's what they're doing.
Well, they're trying to
instead.
conceal information that's damaging to their agenda,
right.
Like things in the past. So,
well, if I remind us of what happened with Norman Dodd, and I was trying to interview G. Edward Griffin on this, and we were connecting, and we just couldn't connect. He didn't know really how to use Skype, and we couldn't really get connected. But I was gonna have him talk about it. But we know there's a video out there with him in 1982 interviewing Norman Dodd, the head of the Reese Commission, which was commissioned to watch the foundations that they weren't going against American ideology, as the foundations, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Carnegie Endowment, were given the jurisdiction rights over the economy, over the education system, because they financed it. So they said, well, we'll give you jurisdiction over it. And they said, well, we need a watchdog to make sure they don't undermine the American system. And Rowan Gaither, the director of the Ford Foundation, came into Norman Dodd's office and says, your commission is watching over us, I suppose. And he says, yeah. And he says, okay, let me tell you what we're doing. We're planning on taking the education system and turning the students into a Soviet Union-style mindset of communism so that they would learn globalism instead of capitalism and swart them away from the Declaration of Independence. And he goes, wait a minute, you're telling me what we're watching you to do, you're admitting that you're doing. And he goes, yeah, but you can't do anything about it. All your department does is watch us. You can't do anything about it because your government's the one that gave us the jurisdiction, the directives.
Yep.
So therefore,
exactly
so basically you will not tell anybody. You will not spread this out. So they had to fold the Reese Commission. It meant nothing. In the meantime, the director, the director, Norman Dodd, was upset, and he told his secretary. His secretary did not believe it because she said the foundations do great work, benevolent work. They're what is it called when they give? The givers there to, anyway, people, when people give, she said they're very good people. They wouldn't do this to us. So he says, okay, well, let's see if we could talk to them, see what they can give you of information. She goes, I'll go visit them. So she went down to one of the foundations and they said, would you like to see our library? And she said, yeah. And he goes, you can't take anything out, but you can look through all our papers. So she went through all the papers, and she saw things about how they started World War I, how they used it to get the American people in chaos so they could throw in socialism and all. And she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe it. She came back, and she couldn't speak, and she just basically resigned, and she had a nervous breakdown, from what we understand. Because she believed in her heart that the global foundations were all for the benevolent good.
Yeah, it's a benevolence, charity, anything. I'm trying to think of the word you were trying to think of.
Philanthropists, that's what they are. So these guys have been working on the economy, the education system, and the people, the students, so that they grow up and have a mindset. They don't understand that they're missing anything. They don't grow up to be capitalists. They're growing up to be globalists. And they just basically take on these ways. And the new regime, the Nazi regime, basically they censor our streams of information. They control the education system, and they re-educate us towards the Soviet-style mindset. It's very easy to see. So that's kind of like, and then they become members of the deep state. They become members of our government, and you have Marxists in government. And then you have the BLM who are Marxists, and people side with the BLM, and then they have offshoot activisms, and activisms help they help as a proponent of communism because they help fuel rebellion and revolutions, and then we can have more fascism, and it's crazy. So I just see like a downfall. I don't know, and everybody's saying that Trump is going to be their answer, and you want to vote for Trump, that's fine, but I don't know if it's beyond that or not, because the Democratic Party is damaged. They're basically apparatuses for the regime, and the Republican Party is too weak and controlled by the Democratic Party. But as Carol Quigley said, both parties are controlled by one oligarchy. It's just a matter of different sides, different legs that they use to appease each side of the people. And we know that. That's why I'm kind of apolitical, basically. I don't know. I mean, I'm more libertarian or conservative, maybe, but I cannot side with these facade parties. I just don't agree with. It's not that I don't agree with them. I don't believe they have any power to do anything. I'm not going to put my stakes in something that is run by the same oligarchy. I think there would have to be a revolt for something to really change.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
So anyway, I think that's all I got. Let's see. I could tell you how Jeff Bezos' grandfather was a co-founder of DARPA.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I found an article on that. FBI file shows that Jeff Bezos' grandfather was a DARPA co-founder, but the evidence has been destroyed. They've basically blocked out all those ties. So, these people that run things, you think that they're innocent. They happen to have chances, and you find out that they're tied in. It's actually John Greenwald Jr., who operates the Black Vault, had a website that has a website revealing declassified government documents, thousands and thousands of documents. And he put on there about this file, but he says it's been destroyed. He can't. It's no longer active. There's no links to it anymore. So they took it down. They basically squashed it.
Wow.
And that's part of the military complex too. The defense, the technological experimental for defense. That's part of the industrialized complex. It's part of what the capitalist wealthy oligarchy does with the experimentation, and DARPA's developed PRISM program. The PRISM program was operated by the NSA. The NSA used it to monitor the citizens. The citizens are controlled. That's a communist system, folks.
Absolutely. Even like the CIA, it's all communism. Yeah.
Well, central intelligence. Yeah, it's centralized banking, centralized control, centralized government. It's all the same thing. So, I guess people didn't see it through that, and they didn't realize that we were already there.
To monitor the terrorists. Monitor us,
the terrorists and any domestic. Well, how they put it is they put terrorists and any domestic people that are supporting the terrorists. But we don't support the terrorists, but they say by us rallying against the government, we're basically supporting the terrorists. That gives them right to the domestic monitoring. See how that works?
Yep.
It's a little chain, a little game they play with semantics.
They're the terrorists. We're not. They are. Yeah. They're the ones that control the terrorist actions and events. Yeah.
Well, CIA is the trainer of the terrorist groups, as well as Mossad and
Hamas,
other
all them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's incredible, isn't it? So more and more people are seeing through this, but they're also monitoring and sensing more and more information like this. But I'm getting more and more people that are seeing this, which is good. All right, we'll end it there. That's all I have for tonight.
Yeah, people are definitely seeing this, absolutely, which is a good thing. One good thing's coming out of it. Yep.
If you want to see more and you see the spiritual side of it also, because I give the significance of the Gnostics and the Luciferian system with the New World Order and the New Age and all that, I have on my website several articles pointing to that, jimdukeperspective.com. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.